Hi creative friends, this is Freya and thank you so much for being here. So today I am going to be reading a comment that I received on one of my videos a few weeks ago, and it was such a multi-dimensional comment with so many juicy layers and questions that I asked the person who left the comment if I could take some time, write her question down, and then make a video about it because, I think that if one person has these questions and concerns, I think a lot of us do. So I'm gonna just read the question out and answer them as I go along. It was a very long and well thought out question, and it's on the video where I wrote about departing from realism. So I'm gonna read it out. And the video is called Letting Go of Realism. That's what the video is called. You talk about the spread conveying your emotions. What kind of emotions are coming up for you? So in that particular spread, I had to go back and watch it. For me, the emotions that were coming up were based largely on the colors that I was using. So I went with a very hot palette. And for me personally, the colors red, they infuse me with so much. I have a lot of cultural symbolism, and there are connotations that are very specific to my culture with the color red in particular. So for me, the feelings that were coming up were feelings of creativity and wildness and fertility, all of the things that I associate with red, but you may not. So this is where it gets really important to know your visual language. And for me, one of the things I want to convey with my art are emotions. They are stories. That's like an integral part of my paintings, whether it's on canvas or in an art journal. I want to tell stories through my art, and you may not. But if you know your purpose, your why, if you know your personal symbology, if you know what your visual language is, if you know the purpose of why you're painting to begin with, those are all going to inform you about your emotions towards something. Because just say that somebody was creating a very well rendered still life, a photorealistic painting of, a still life, but they were examining light, for example, and they wanted it to look as realistic as possible. Well, their emotions might be a lot different than somebody who is going for more of an abstract kind of a painting, somebody who wants to tell a story in a different way. Now, the person who's doing the photorealism, they could be wanting to tell a story as well. And most of the times they are telling a story. Like if you look at a photorealistic painting of, say, an apple and a book and, a chair, an empty chair. Well, that in and of itself has context, and that's telling a story. It's just that the vehicle is different. One person is using photorealism, perhaps, and another person is using a completely abstract, kind of a rendition of whatever story they're telling. So all art tells stories. Even photographs tell stories. So it's not just painting, it's all forms of art. They tell a story of the simplest things. And I don't want to get too much off on a tangent here because I can talk about this forever. But one of the things that when I was in Oaxaca that Connie talked about is keeping a studio log. And I am going to make a video completely separate just on a studio log because there are many ways to keep a studio log. But the way that she talked about is that we converse with our paintings, which at first I have conversed with paintings, by the way. Like when I've been to museums, of course I talk to paintings, not out loud, but in my head. And I've done this, you know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have. I mean, if I'm standing in front of a Van Gogh, yeah, I'm going to be talking to that painting. You can bet I'm going to be asking all sorts of questions, and I'm just going to be having a conversation with the painting. But I've never done it. I had never done it with my art before. But when I was in Oaxaca and Connie talked about a studio log, she presented the idea of us conversing with our own paintings. And it was the most brilliant idea, because once I started doing that, it really strengthened my visual language. It strengthened my purpose, my focus, my intentions. And I developed a very strong relationship with my work that I hadn't had prior to that. So these are all tools that you can use to access your emotions. Now I'm going to continue reading the question because there's a lot more and it just gets juicier. When I watch your videos, I get inspired to make something, but then doubt creeps in. So I'm just going to address this about doubt. So I have this book over here, which is an excellent book on creativity. It's called Big Magic. It's by Elizabeth Gilbert. When I first ordered it, I think it came out like 7 or 8 years ago. I read it back, front to back, just successively 3 times in a row. Like I just was so enthralled with it. There were so many ideas that she presented, and she talks about the creative process in great detail. Now, while her creative process doesn't mirror mine exactly, there are a lot of points that she makes that you know, I think all creatives share. And one of the things she talked about is fear. And I think that doubt, and I think Elizabeth Gilbert talks about this in this book, and she also talked about it in her now famous TED Talk that she gave on, you know, creativity and the creative life, etc. But doubt is another way that fear presents itself. When doubt comes in, it's like you have to ask yourself, where is this doubt coming from? Is this doubt something that's new doubt? Is it old doubt? Does it come from your childhood? Does it come from a teacher? Does it come from a parent? Does it come from, you know, you like watching other social media artists and now you're comparing yourself to them? Like, where is this doubt coming from? Because in order for you to have doubt about your work, you need to have a lot of beliefs that are going to give rise to that doubt. Like it's not going to exist in a vacuum. So I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly, but just say I sit down to do a painting and I'm painting a green face, for example. Now if doubt comes up, I have to ask myself, okay, where is this doubt coming from? Did I learn somewhere along the way that I cannot paint a face green? Well, who told me that? Is there any merit to it? And, you know, by examining that, I'm going to get to the root of it. And then maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to go look up other artists that I love. And I'm going to go, wow, well, you know, Picasso painted, you know, blue faces. So, you know, I think he was a genius. So I think that, you know, Joe from the art store, who was just telling me, you know, this green face looks like crap. When I went over there to get my painting framed, maybe I shouldn't be listening to him. You know, I'm making a joke, but you get my point. Like, doubt is another face of fear, and we have to try to figure out where did that doubt come from. And I think once you kind of unravel that a little bit, it's going to go a lot smoother. I know for me personally, I had to come to terms with a lot of things that were causing me doubt, like, you know, with abstract faces and different colored faces and all of these things. And then I had to look and see, well, where were these ideas coming from? You know, who put them there, and is there any merit to it? I can choose to believe something different. So look at your doubt and try to get to the root of where it's coming from. And, you know, you can journal about it, or you can just talk to somebody about it, or talk to yourself about it. So I'm going to continue with the question. The start with collage goes smoothly. The painting is where it stops. Letting go of reality is, for me, a very broad description of the process. You ask yourself questions, but no questions come up when I stare at my spread. Maybe I am so stuck in reality that I fear that everything I come up with needs to look like something. The images that are not real, not based on something that I have seen or experienced outside myself, are so deeply buried inside me and my unconscious that I fear I will never reach them. Have you heard the concepts of ordinary time and dream time described by Mary Oliver? She's a poet. Maybe modern life is too filled with ordinary time. Maybe I need much more dream time, which will clarify why I am so resistant to painting. Maybe my unconscious needs to be much more gently coaxed in showing her deep buried treasures to me. What do you think? So I'm just going to present a few different paths over here for you to take. These questions are so juicy and multi-layered, and I totally understand where you're coming from in many respects. So a lot of times we have to look at where we're getting our concept of art from to begin with, because, you know, art, even art that's very realistically rendered, like photorealistically rendered, it's still fake. Like, it's still not real. It's still just depicting something. So you can look at the Mona Lisa, you can look at work that looks like it's a photograph, and, you know, it's still not real. It's still fake. It's just somebody's idea of a thing. It's somebody's concept of how they perceived something, and now they have put it down on a canvas or a piece of paper or whatever. So any kind of art is not real. So you have to choose, what kind of art do you want to make? Do you want to make photorealistic art? Because if you do, then that's fine. You know, but like, commit to it and say, well, I want to do photorealism. Or maybe you want to do something a little in between. You know, it doesn't have to be completely abstract. It can be something in between. But first, just like, choose which path you want to go. That's the first thing, and commit to it. So the second thing is, if you do want to paint more abstract art, like letting go of realism, whenever this fear comes up, like, to me, that would seem like an inner critic. And we all have an inner critic. And I go back to what Elizabeth Gilbert says about the inner critic. She says, make friends with your inner critic. She goes, invite it up in the front, have it sitting in the passenger seat. She goes, become friends with it, get to know your inner critic intimately, but do not let them drive the car. So what she was saying is, you know, get to know your inner critic, get to know what they're made of, get to know where their fears come from, where their doubts come from, where their inhibitions come from, and then say, okay, all right, but still do whatever you want to do anyways. And I guess it really comes down to, you know, what kind of art do you want to make? And if you want to access those unconscious parts of yourself, those dream parts of yourself, I would say journal, like write. And, you know, get to know those parts of yourself, and get to know your visual language, get to strengthen your visual language, because that's how you're going to be able to tell your stories. And Nobody else can tell your stories like you. Like nobody. If somebody was going to replicate what you were going to put forth into the world, it would just be a poor imitation, because nobody can bring the work into the world the way you can, because it's coming out through your mind, through your heart, through your soul, through your hands, through your imagination, through your symbology and visual language, which is very personal. Like nobody else is going to have your visual language. They're just not. Like nobody is going to do that. Like, so as much as I admire, say, certain artists, I don't want their work, like I wouldn't want to replicate their work. I might replicate their work, try to replicate their work if I was going to learn something, which artists have done, throughout history. But in terms of like me making my own art, I want to make my own art, even if it's like really bad, and everybody struggles with that. Like everybody makes bad art. So there's nothing wrong with making bad art, but let it be your art. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care if it's bad art, but it's my bad art. It's not somebody else's bad art. But anyways, I'm getting off on a tangent here. So let me see here. The concept of dreams, I think, is a great way to get into your subconscious mind, because in a dream, like think about when you're dreaming, like anything is possible. Like a cow can turn into a into a human being, and be dancing on a rooftop, and I don't know, just be eating spaghetti, like type of thing. Like anything is possible in a dream. I mean, you can fly, you can swim underwater and turn into a fish with golden scales, and everything is possible in a dream. So I think that's a great entry point into accessing your subconscious. Just think of it like a dream where there's nothing wrong. Nothing can be wrong in a dream. Like there's no such concept even of right and wrong. Like you might get scared in a dream, but anything's possible in a dream. Like the most impossible things are just a matter of course in a dream. So take that same approach. I think that's a fantastic approach. So just take that approach, and that is a great entry point into your subconscious mind, and also into coming to a space of non-judgment, where you are not saying, well, this is good and this is bad, and this, I shouldn't be doing this, or I can't do this, or what is somebody going to say, or whatever. Like that is a great way to access your subconscious mind. So I think those are great ways. Now I'm going to talk about something else here. So I don't know if you guys know the artist Doechii. She is a beautiful, authentic, vibrant singer. So about 5 years ago, she was basically unknown. Like nobody even knew her. And she still does have a YouTube channel. So about 5 years ago, she started reading The Artist's Way, okay, by Julia Cameron. It's a classic, and I've read it many times. And there is, you go week by week. Of like, week number 1, this is what you do, week number 2, etc. So Doechii, she documented her entire journey of The Artist's Way. And I'm just in the process of listening to it, because there's so many gems in there. Now, 5 years ago, she was unknown, and now she, is a 2-time Grammy winner, and she's on the cover of fashion magazines, and she's hanging out with, I don't know, whoever all the young music stars are these days. But my point is, in one of the videos, she asked this question: what kind of art would you make if no one was ever going to see it or hear it? She's a singer. I think she's a singer / songwriter. So she asked that question, like, what kind of art would you make? What kind of songs would you write if nobody was ever going to listen to it, like ever? And she said, do that. do that, because the world needs more authenticity. The world doesn't need replicas of something that's already been done. And I know that line just stuck with me, because that's what we need. Is we the world craves authenticity. Um, and just be true to yourself. I know it sounds so cliche and it sounds so simple, but that's at the root of it. Like, be true to who you are, and try to take the mirror of what is everybody else going to say or think or do, or when the self-doubt comes, become friends with it, because like self-doubt is the inner critic, and just get to know your inner critic. Say, well, what are you scared of? Are you scared of being laughed at? Are you scared that someone's going to mock you, or say, well, oh, who do you think you are? You think you're an artist? Well, you're not an artist. Like, why are you painting pink elephants or whatever? You know, I'm being kind of, you know, I there's a serious undertone to this. I'm just trying to make light of it, but it is a very serious question. Why do you have self-doubt? That is a very serious question that only you can answer and get to the root of it. Because when you get to the root of it, you're going to say, okay, is this something I picked up in childhood? Is this something that one of my teachers told me? Is this something, that, I don't know. I mean, we pick up so many things from so many different places. But that is a big question to confront, to write about, to get to the root of, because, and Brene Brown talked about this, it's very easy for people who are not in the ring. Now, of course, I'm paraphrasing. There's a whole quote that goes with it. But but the people who are actually doing stuff, the people who are actually creating stuff, who are who are in the ring, they're not the ones that are criticizing. It's only the people who are not doing anything that are criticizing, because the people who are busy doing whatever work they're doing, whether it's planting a garden or making pots or painting or writing or whatever, they're too busy doing what they're doing. They're too busy focused on their own work. So they're not really going to be criticizing other people. And also creatives, we know how hard the creative process is. It's a difficult path. You have to be really committed to what you're doing. We work alone generally. I mean, if you're a writer or a potter or a painter, you're spending long hours alone, and you don't have people saying, oh, good job or whatever. You're filled with self-doubt, and it's a difficult process, but it's also a joyful process, and it's a sacred process. So I just think it's important to be committed to the work that you want to bring into the world, and also to get to know your inner critic. And I can't recommend this book highly enough, Big Magic. It is an excellent book. And the same with the Julia Cameron book. Now, I'm going to tell you a few other gems that Doechii has said. Now, like I said, I'm just in the middle of listening to her videos. So she talks about core values. And Julia Cameron does as well. Like, what are your core values? She talks about authenticity. She talks about just staying true to your vision no matter what. She also talks about shame, because Julia Cameron talks about this a lot as well. And so then Doechii, because she's going through the Julia Cameron book, she talks about shame as well. And shame can honestly be a huge block in our creativity, because I come from a very dysfunctional family, and I've talked about it a lot, in different ways, like on my other social media platforms, etc. And I've even made videos on my YouTube channel when I talk about Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And shame and fear go together in many respects, but when you've grown up and you're an adult now, the fear doesn't stay as much as the shame does. Shame stays for a really long time unless you tackle it. And if we are shame based and we have a lot of shame, like, oh, you know, I'm gonna get laughed at, or I'm not good enough. You know, there's all these like patterns and programs that are running, that stem from our belief systems and our childhood, etc. And if we have a lot of shame, if we have a lot of fear, it is going to inhibit us creatively. And I can talk about this more if you guys would like. I can talk about it within the context of Women Who Run with the Wolves, which I will probably do anyways, since I am doing that series. Another thing that Doechii talks about is criticism, and she makes the distinction between, you know, some criticism is helpful and some criticism is harmful, and it's important to know the differences between the two. You know, sometimes people just want to critique for the sake of critiquing, and you just have to kind of say, I don't know, you know, do I really want to take this on myself? Is there any merit to what they're saying? Do I admire this person? Do I admire the way they live? Are they committed to their work? You know, those are all questions I tend to ask myself. Because if somebody is just going to critique me for no reason, and, you know, I'm going to be like, okay, well, why should I listen to them? Whereas if it's somebody I really admire who, you know, gave me a criticism, I'm going to be like, if Connie Solera, for instance, if she critiqued me, you know, I would be like, oh, and I would listen to her. And that's not the way she teaches, by the way. She doesn't teach from a position of criticism. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, I would look at the person and say, do I admire this person? Are they committed to their work? You know, how do they approach their work? Et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, I hope that I have answered some of these questions. This is an important discussion, and I'm sure I've missed a lot of things, but I hope that this is just a starting point into how you can dive more into your subconscious mind. And I'm going to make another video about detachment and play, because like I do believe they are different sides of the same coin. And playing is another way that we can bypass our inner critic and our fears and our shame, because when we're playing, we're simply just being present. We are playing. There's no like outcome to playing, except just have fun, be curious, be in the moment. So anyways, I hope that this has been helpful. I so appreciate your comments and your questions, and I know that this is a you know, this is just like maybe a 20-minute video, and it can't possibly cover all of these questions, but I hope that it's a small step in the right direction. So if you've watched all the way to the end, thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.